To the Easter Satin Ice class. Today we're going to be working with two of the Satin Ice products. We have the Buttercream Icing mix, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then we also have our fondant. I'll bring this up into the screen so you guys can see. We have a chick cupcake, a carrot cupcake, and then a cupcake that has a bunny butt. It's really cute. This is a really cute trio, great for Easter celebrations, great if you have a bakery and you want to sell them. There's so many options. So this is also very fun and easy, nothing too complicated, and we'll walk through it together. We can go over to the overhead camera and I'll show you all the supplies we're going to be working with. Also, I'm sorry for the glare here. The window and the shades the sun's really starting to come down a little bit. So sorry about that. So we have white fondant, orange fondant, pink fondant, green fondant, and black fondant. These are going to be all of our details for our cupcakes. I have a rolling pin, a spatula for when we make the buttercream, some water. This is going to help us adhere the fondant to each other for the little details. I have two little sharp knives, a food safe paintbrush, some scissors to cut my packages open, some cupcakes. I have some towels that are dry and wet. I don't have access to a sink right next to me, so that's why I have that. Of course, if you're next to a sink and have soap and water, be sure to wash your hands in between using colors if they rub off on your hands. This way you don't transfer another color to another. I also have some buttercream pre-made. I will go through the steps to show you how to make the buttercream using the Satin Ice Buttercream Icing mix as well, though. But for the buttercream prepared, I have the white, I have orange, and I have yellow. And I believe this is the 1A tip that I have. It's just the simple circle tip here. And if you don't have a piping tip, you can easily just do this by cutting the end of the piping tip as well. So for the supplies for the buttercream, I already have the buttercream icing mix in the bowl here. I have my butter and my water measured out. And then I also have my mixer and my beaters. You can do this with a hand mixer like this, or you can do it with a stand mixer with the paddle attachment. So first, I want to make our fondant pieces because it's important that those have time to set before you place them onto the cupcakes, especially some of the ones that are standing up straight. So to do that, let's clear off our space, make sure we have room for everything. I also want to mention I do have a piece of parchment paper. I'm also working on a silicone mat. This is to help so that the fondant doesn't stick and it's a nice clean surface. But I also have this parchment paper to place my toppers on. This way it dries. I like to have this handy as well. All right, so while I'm getting my space ready, I want you guys to tell me what your favorite Easter desserts are. Mine is carrot cake because I love cream cheese frosting. And I'm really excited to make that this year. Let me know in the chat what your favorite dessert is for Easter. So we're going to start with green because first I'm going to make the topper for the carrot, which are the leaves. Someone else said carrot cake. Nice. That's definitely very popular around Easter time. So first we're going to work with green. So if you're new to working with fondant, it may seem scary, but I promise you it's a lot of fun and it's easy to work with. So right off the bat, when you open it up, it's going to kind of feel similar to a dough or a Play-Doh, but it's edible and it tastes delicious. So what you want to do when you open it is you want to start to knead it, and that's going to help soften it up and activate the gums so that you can make it flexible. You can shape it in any shape you want. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to we only need a small amount right here for the leaves. And I'm going to show you how to do all these little toppers without any cutters or tools. I like to try to do that because not everyone has a lot of tools handy. And then when you're working with fondant, it's important that you don't work, like you work somewhat fast and not very fast, that you're rushing through, but fast enough so that it doesn't dry out, because once fondant is exposed to air, it starts to dry immediately. Where do you find fondant? You can find fondant at Satin Ice Fondant at Michael's. You can also find the Buttercream Icing Mix at your local Michael's as well. So because of the fact that the fondant dries once it's opened and in air, it's important that any of your leftovers you put in a Ziploc bag and you put it into an airtight container to store it so that you can reuse it. So I'm just going to place this in my bag, make sure it's sealed nicely, and I'll put it to the side for later. So I'm going to just begin to knead my fondant. I'm working with a very small amount right now, but if you were working with a big piece, you would use the palm of your hand, press down, fold, press down, and just keep repeating that process until your fondant becomes pliable and nice and smooth and easy to work with. You might notice that your fondant can become pliable quickly if you have like warmer hands. My hands definitely run on the warmer side, so mine already seems like it's getting ready to be worked with. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make the leaves for the carrot themed cupcake. And normally you could do this if you had a cutter very easily, but I want to show you a trick on how to do this without a cutter. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 separate small balls of the green fondant. So I'm just going to take portions off of the piece that I have kneaded, and I'm going to roll 3 balls around, kind of even in size. Okay, so we have 3 balls of green fondant. Next, what we're going to do is to get that leaf shape, we want to form this into a long cone shape. So what I'm going to do is take my pointer finger and I'm going to roll back and forth on one side of the ball of fondant, and it's going to create a tapered shape, almost like a cone. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I'll bring it up closer so you guys can see the shape. So you're going to get a tapered cone shape, and then you can even pinch the end to make it pointy. And then from here, we're going to place it down on our mat, use our pointer finger again, start pressing down lightly, and this is going to flatten it and turn it into a leaf shape. Don't flatten it down too hard that you're not able to pick it up off your surface, just nice and gently. And then if you do notice that your fondant is sticking to your surface, you can also use a small amount of cornstarch. So the cornstarch acts as, it helps the fondant from sticking to your surface. You can also use powdered sugar if you have it, but it's important not to use too much because this can dry out the product, and the more you knead the cornstarch into the product, it will dry it out. So it's important to use just a small amount. A small amount goes a long way. So now that I have this piece here, I'm just going to place it to the side a little bit, and we're going to repeat this process. So I have my other ball of green fondant, and we're going to go on one side of it and start rolling back and forth with your pointer finger. And this is going to create that cone shape we were doing before. I'll pick it up and show you the shape. And now that you have that cone shape, you're going to take your pointer finger and press down so that it forms the shape of a leaf. So the Satin Ice Fondant comes in a variety of different colors, and that's one of my favorite parts, is that you don't have to really mix any food color in unless you really wanted a custom shade. Comes in a ton of colors, a ton of different sizes, and you can even mix the colors together to create unique and custom shades. So it's really versatile and really fun to work with. So I'm going to just make one more. So I'm taking the ball of the green fondant, and again, I'm going to taper one end. And then we're going to flatten that out to make the leaf. And like I said, the fondant starts to dry out a little bit once it's exposed to air. So as your shape is final, you want to try to not maneuver it as much, because once it starts to dry and you start to maneuver it, you might start to see cracks or areas that could get dry, and we want the fondant to stay smooth. So we want to try not to maneuver it too much once it starts to dry. So next, I'm just going to transfer this onto my piece of parchment paper. And the way that we can do this is, if you want to stick them, you can stick them into your buttercream separately, or we can attach them together to create one big leaf like I did here. I also want to add in some details to make it look like the leaves on top of the carrots. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to lightly score some lines into the green fondant to make this look like leaves. I'll pick this up to show you. I'm really lightly just scoring the fondant. Just to put that detail in there. I'm going to do the same thing to the other two. And then once you do that, what we're going to do is we're going to layer these on top of each other to create one big leaf. And if your fondant is still soft enough, you can probably do this without any water, but if you need to, you can take your water, your paintbrush, and just dab a small amount of water on top of the fondant that before you place it on each other. So I'll just dab a really small amount. You don't want to put too much water because this can create color bleed, and we don't want that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Okay, so how do I get, the text is going through the entire picture and I can't see what you're doing. So is it something on my end that I have to cut the CC text out? Because
Jamie, can you chat in the chat and I will assist you there?
oh, sorry.
Sorry about that, Sarah. You can go ahead.
That's okay. If you guys have any questions at all, please put them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so I'm just layering those three pieces of green fondant to create the top of the leaf for the carrot. Kind of almost looks like a tulip shape. So now what I'm going to do is, you can see that the pieces are floppy right now, and that's because the fondant is not set yet. So once it starts to set, it's going to stay in place, but now is the time that we should just let it set and sit on the piece of parchment paper to let it do its thing and dry so that we don't mess with it anymore. So I'm going to put that to the side, and we're going to work on our next two, the details for the next two cupcakes. So the next one we'll work on are the bunny butt and the bunny feet. This one is so cute. I love this design. So for this one's also very simple. We're just going to use white fondant and pink fondant, and we're actually going to mix the fondant, the white and the pink together to create a light pastel shade of pink. Before I do that, since I was working with green, some of the green had rubbed off on my hands, so I'm just going to give my hands a nice wipe to make sure that color's off before we begin using the white. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to mention as well for the fondant is, say before it starts to dry, you're like, I don't like what I just made. It's just like Play-Doh. You can take a piece off and just rework it, your piece, to see however shape you want. But you would have to do that before it starts to dry out. Okay, and then any leftover pieces of fondant that you have, just put it in the bag or your airtight container so that you can use it later. Okay, so next I'm going to take out the white and the pink. So first, let's just lighten our pink. And if you don't want a pastel pink, you don't have to. You can also just use the pink as is. It's up to you. I want to tone mine down a little bit, so I'm going to mix the two. Satin Ice has color mix guides on their website and on their Pinterest page, and you can see a whole range of different color mixes you can make with their fondants, and you can see all the ratios. Today, I'm not going to use a specific ratio. I'm just going to eyeball the two colors, mainly using my white and a tad bit of pink to create that light shade of pink. Since we really only need the smallest amount, just enough to create the pads on the feet of the bunny feet, I'm really going to take the smallest amount of pink. So a little of this will go a long way. But since I opened this, I'm going to put this in a Ziploc bag as well. Side, and we'll open up our white. We're just going to take a small portion of the white. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to combine these two pieces together, and we're just going to start mixing it until it's completely combined and you start to see a lighter shade of pink form. And if you say this is still too dark of a pink once you mix it all through, just add some more white until you get to the shade that you want. Just want to make sure that I put my white fondant away so that this doesn't dry out. Again, if you start to notice that your fondant is starting to stick to your hands or your surface, you can just dust a little bit of cornstarch. Like I said before, a little bit goes a long way, and you can just spread it out over your surface, put some on your hands, and begin to knead the fondant. I think I just saw a question come through. Can you freeze the fondant? I'm not sure if that's what they said. If it is, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't need to freeze fondant. The Satin Ice fondant has a 12-month shelf life. As long as you keep it in an airtight container, you're golden. You actually can pre-make a lot of different fondant toppers and let them set out in the air to dry and then store them in an airtight container. So you can pre-make different details and toppers and have them for whenever you need them. It's really great, but there's no need to freeze the fondant. But that is a good question. Okay, so now I have a lighter shade of pink. And next, now that I have that, I'm going to also just get my plain white out now. And now I have some pink on my hands, so I'm just going to wipe this off. Always make sure that your surface is clean and dry as well. Okay, so we'll take the white back out to get a small portion of this. And we will begin making the bunny butt and the bunny feet. We're working with small amounts of fondant because we are making small toppers for cupcakes. If you wanted to scale any of these toppers up for a cake, you can definitely do that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to knead my white fondant now that we just took it out, just until it's soft and pliable. Okay, so first, let's go with the bunny tail. What I did here, so this is the bunny tail right here. And to make that texture, all I did was you can either use the end of your sharp knife or you can use a toothpick or any other pointy tool to get that cool, like fluffy texture. Okay, so for that, I'm just going to roll a ball of the white fondant. And I actually have a toothpick here. I'll show you how you could do it with a knife too. My pointy knife. And what we're going to do is you're just going to take the point of your knife or your toothpick or whatever pointy tool you have, and you're just going to begin poking the fondant with your tool, and it's going to create that fuzzy texture. Just keep doing this all around. You don't really have to do the bottom of it because you're not going to see that, but we could just go all around the sides, top. And this is fun because you can't really mess this up. It's a fun texture. Okay. Then you can put it down. You can go on the side. So if you're using a toothpick, you would do the same thing. Just quickly poke in and out of the fondant, and you'll start to see that texture form. And then if you notice that as you're poking the fondant, if your shape starts to not look like a circle anymore, you could just simply roll it in between your hands just to make it circular again. Okay, so this is my bunny tail, and I'm just gonna put that to the side on my parchment paper as well, so that can start to dry. These ones, we don't need them to dry as long because they are staying flat on the cupcake. The one that I'm more concerned about drying is the leaf for the carrot cupcake, since that is standing up straight. So it has to dry so it holds its shape. Okay, so the next part, we're going to make the bunny feet. So if you had an oval cutter, a small oval cutter, you can just roll the fondant out and cut out an oval that way. But if you don't have an oval cutter, what we're going to do is form 2 small balls of the white fondant. Try to make them even in size. And then if you realize once you roll it out and you're like, oh wait, those feet are too big, just re-roll them again and go from there. So now I have 2 balls of the white fondant, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our pointer finger, slightly roll back and forth just until you kind of form an oval like egg shape. So it's no longer a circle. We want to create like an oval egg shape with both of these. And then we're going to do the same technique as we did before with the leaf. We're just going to start pressing down until you have an oval shape, a flat oval shape. Not too thin so that you can't pick it up, but just thin enough so that the shape starts to form. And then if you need to, again, dust a small amount of cornstarch on your surface. This is going to help it not stick from when you pressing it down with your finger. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like after you press it down. So this is before, and that's after you press it down. So we'll do another one. I'm going to put this on my parchment paper. And then, so now I have this oval shape, and I'm just going to lightly start to press down with my pointer finger, just all around to form that oval shape. You can bring the other one over just to make sure everything looks even. I really specifically like this technique about rolling everything into like the shape and then flattening it out for really small circles because they don't always sell or have available very small circle cutters. So you'll see that we're going to do the same technique for the pink pads on the bunny feet right here. So now we're going to need our light pink fondant, or pink if you left it the regular color. And we're going to take really small pieces of this because we're going to be flattening them out. And we're going to actually flatten them out directly onto our bunny feet, because you'll notice if you're working with very small amounts of fondant and you flatten it out on the surface, it's going to be very hard to lift it up and to keep its shape. So I'm going to roll really, I'm going to bring them up close once I have them rolled, but we're going to roll really small balls of the pink fondant to be the pads on the feet that are under the toe part. So those really small pink circles. Okay, so I have 3 of those rolled out now. I'm going to bring them up close on my fingers so you guys can see the size I'm working with. Those little circles. Okay, so I have 3 of those, and we want to do 3 more of these because we need 3 on each foot. So just keep rolling a small amount out, and you might notice that it could get a little sticky because you're working with a smaller amount here. So again, just take some cornstarch. I like to even put a little bit on the side of my working surface and just keep it there to like lightly pat my fingers into if I need to when I'm working with smaller pieces. Okay, so now I have a total of 6 very small little balls of the light pink fondant. I will bring them up again so you guys can see the size of them. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to place these onto the bunny feet where we want to press them down. Just trying to get them off my hand now. Okay, so you're going to take your bunny foot and you're going to just go along the bottom edge and start placing the little balls down and wherever you want to place them. And you're just going to press down and then it's going to form a little circle. So you're just going to you're going to put the other 2 here. So just place it down. Since these are smaller pieces and my hands are on the warmer side, my fondant is still remaining a little bit tacky. So I'm not needing to use any of the water to stick mine. We'll see if this one still does it. It might not. I might have to use a small amount of water. Okay, so I have to use a small amount of water now. What I'm going to do is, this is another tip, to be sure that you're not using too much water. I like to dip my paintbrush into the water, have a dry paper towel next to me, and just dab it clean. This way, I don't overdo the water. If you overdo the water, it won't be good. The fondant colors could bleed onto the white, which we don't want. So I'm just going to lightly dab the area where I'm going to put these pink pieces of fondant, and then they'll stick great. So I'm just going to lay it down and then lightly press down with my pointer finger to shape it into a circle. I'm going to do one more. So I'm just lightly tapping to form those little small balls of the pink fondant into circles. And if you need help lifting pieces of fondant on your working surface, you can use your knife to slide underneath to easily pick it up. Okay, So now we have the pads for the toe area, and then we're going to do the heel area. So what you're going to do is the same technique, but just a slightly bigger ball of the pink fondant. So I'll roll mine and I'll show you about the size. I just want to place mine down to see if it's like a good size. Okay, so I'll show you both so you can compare it to the pieces we were using before for the toes. So that's the size that I'm using for the toes, and then that's the size that I'm going to use for the heel. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to lift this up so you guys can see it closer. Just going to place this down, and I'm going to lightly press down with my pointer finger, kind of also spreading it a little bit as I press down. This way it spreads the shape out a little bit and it creates a nice even circle. So there's our bunny foot. That's one. Let's do the other. Okay, so I already have the smaller pieces of the pink fondant for the toes. So I'm just going to lay those down and then I will press them down with my finger. Again, if you need to use a small amount of water, definitely can. Just be very careful with the amount that you use. Blot down your brush with a paper towel so that it's not really wet. I'm going to probably need a little bit of water myself. Okay, so I'm not even going to re-dip my brush into the water because it's still wet enough. I'm just going to gently tap it onto the piece of fondant. And now my pieces are sticking. So now I have the balls on here now, and now I'm just going to lightly press down to make them flat. And if your pieces fall off, just put them back on. You might need to use more water. See, I didn't use water on that piece, so that piece is coming off. You can also use edible glue if you have that on hand. Okay, so I'm just pressing these on, and then we'll move to the heel. Okay, so now again, we're just going to roll a small ball of the pink fondant, slightly bigger than the ones we're using for the toes. And I'm just going to brush a really small amount of water where I'm going to put this so that I know it sticks. So I'm going to place it down on the white fondant, and then I'm just going to gently start tapping down so that it forms a circle and flattens out nicely. There we go. We've got our bunny feet and we've got our bunny tail. The next part, we're going to work on the pieces for our chick. And those are very small pieces and really easy pieces. So we're going to create the eyes. And we're going to use the same technique about forming the shape and then pressing down to make them flat. So we're going to create the eyes, the little beak, and then the little feet. So first, let's start with orange, since black is the darker color. Again, I have extra pieces of fondant, so I'm just going to store those in a bag. And you can take out your orange fondant. We're going to be using a very small amount again. If anyone has questions regarding the project or fondant in general or buttercream, just let me know. And I can do my best to answer any of your questions.
Sarah, we did have a question come in while you were making the bunny feet.
Okay.
How long do you normally let them dry before decorating?
So like I said, it depends on the piece that you're working on. So with these, the bunny feet and the tail, I don't have to wait. I could put these directly onto the cupcake right now because they are laying flat. For a piece like this, where it's going to be sticking upright and has to keep its shape, I would like to let it set for a few hours. If I'm making a bunch, I would do my toppers 1 to 2 days in advance, just to really make sure that they're set and dry. To speed up the process, you can mix in gum paste or CMC powder, and that will make your fondant dry harder at a quicker pace too. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to make the beak and the feet for the chick. I'm going to bring this piece of parchment so you guys can see the other shapes that we made. And to do that, we're going to be making the same shape for both of them. So again, we're going to create kind of like these triangle shapes. So for the beak, we want a small ball of the orange fondant. And then for the feet, 2 balls, but slightly bigger. Make sure they're around the same size. And for these, what we're going to do is take our pointer finger again, slightly taper the ends. So it's like a cone shape. Again, I'll bring these up closer so you can see before I flatten them. Okay, so we have 3 cone shapes. The smaller one is going to be for the beak. And then the 2 medium-sized ones are going to be for the feet. So what we did was we took the balls of we turned the orange fondant into balls, and then we tapered them into look like cones so that we can get a triangle shape. And now we're going to flatten them, and it's going to turn into triangles for the feet and the beak. Okay, so first I'm going to do the beak, and I'm just going to lightly press down. And if you notice that like the tip of where the triangle should be is like it's starting to round, you can just pinch the edges with your finger, and then you'll start to get a triangle shape again. So that's the beak. Same thing for the feet, press down. You can flatten the edge to be the edge of the triangle, and then you can take your pointer finger and your thumb and pinch the sides to create a pointy shape to make it a triangle. So you're pressing down. Bring this up close. You're pressing down to create a flatter shape. And if you notice that it's starting to get rounded at the tip, just take your pointer finger and your thumb, pinch it a little bit to make it pointy again. And if you want the bottom to be flat, just press up against it and you'll get more of a triangle shape. And then for the feet, the way that the feet are going to go in is the straight edge side is going to face out. And that's where we can make our lines with our knife to create the little webbed feet. So I'm just going to lightly indent with my knife to create the little lines on the feet. We have those, and next we just need 2 really small specks of the black fondant for the eyes. So we'll open that up. Again, we're going to need the smallest amount of black fondant here, and I'm going to put my extra in a bag. So what we want to do here, again, is just roll 2 really small balls of the black fondant. I'll show you the size. And then we're just going to lightly press down with our pointer finger to turn these into little circles. I'm gonna have to do this on my surface so that it doesn't stick to my other hand. And I'm just taking a little bit of my cornstarch that I have on the side here, my finger, just enough so that the fondant doesn't stick to my finger when I press down. So now we have our two eyes as well. And the next part is we're gonna move on to the buttercream. Before I move on to the buttercream, does anyone have any questions for the toppers?
I think we're good right now.
Okay, great. Okay, so the buttercream icing mix is really, really cool. So when you make homemade buttercream, you normally have to use powdered sugar, and powdered sugar can get very messy and fly all over the place when you turn on your mixer. The buttercream icing mix is more of a dough base. And this way there's no powders flying around, and this mixes up to a delicious light and fluffy buttercream. It tastes like homemade, especially because we are adding real butter in as well. There's so many different recipes you could do as well. You can make it extra buttery by adding extra butter. You could do cream cheese, you can add peanut butter, cocoa, whatever you really want. And you can customize it to be whatever you need it to be. And you can add other flavoring or color as well. So it's a lot of fun. So I already have my buttercream measured out into my bowl here. And this is about 2 pounds. So for the 2 pounds, I'm using 8 ounces of butter, and I have my butter softened. I'm using salted butter because I think it just adds more flavor. You can use half salted, half unsalted, or all unsalted, whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to put this directly into the bowl with the buttercream icing mix. Make sure I get all that butter in there. And now I'm just going to start mixing it. And then once this starts to get combined, we can add our water in. If you don't want to use water, you can also use heavy cream or milk. Just getting my mixer ready. Okay, so after less than a minute of mixing, this buttercream is pretty much already made. All I'm going to do is start scraping down the sides to make sure everything's incorporated evenly, and I'm going to add my water in. I'm going to add around 2 tablespoons of water. If you want the buttercream to be stiffer, you can add less. If you want it to be thinner, you can even add more. Whatever works for the project you're working on. I am using the standard recipe here though, which does pipe on a cupcake, which is what we want. So I'm just gonna slowly start adding my water as I begin mixing again. Okay, our buttercream is made. And also the more you mix it and the more you whip it, the fluffier it will get as well. So I already have my buttercream pre-colored and already in my piping bags just to save time. If you don't have a piping bag, or even if you don't have a piping tip, you can also use a Ziploc bag and put your buttercream to the corner of it and snip a hole at the corner. and start piping, because we're not using any piping tips that have a specific edge on them or anything. We're just using the round piping tip. Okay, so now we have nice, smooth, delicious buttercream. It smells so good. I love turning this into a cream cheese recipe too. That works really well for the carrot cakes. Okay, so since I already have my buttercream already prepped, I'm just gonna place this to the side. And we can start piping for our cupcakes. So for the carrot, the way I piped this is that I just kept going around and around until I got to the tip, because this is going to give me like those ridges on a carrot. So what I did was I just start from the outside, where I do one ring around. So I'll show you. Okay, so I have one layer. Now we're going to do that same thing, but smaller. So that's going to give me my second layer. It's going to form those ridges like a carrot would have. And do another layer. It's my third layer, and then I'm just going to do one more. So here you have the orange buttercream piped. Again, this is supposed to look like the ridges on a carrot. And then once your carrot leaves are dried, you can just take it and press it into the top. And it looks like a carrot. These leaves I actually did thinner and skinnier. These ones are a little bigger. They still work. Okay, so next, let's do the bunny. So this one's even more simple. Again, we're using the same tip. I believe it's the 1A. It's just the circle tip. And if you don't have the piping tip, that's okay. Just cut the end of your piping bag and you'll have a rounded tip right there. So I'm just going to take my cupcake. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze a big dollop, so it's nice and round. So I'm just going to squeeze, pressure, keep squeezing, and eventually just going to be like a white dollop of buttercream, just like that. And you can do this with any other piping tip, even like a star tip, and create like a fun kind of rosette shape, and then put the bunny tail and bunny feet on as well. It's whatever you like to do. So I'm just going to grab my toppers from over here. And I'm going to place the tail in the center. And then the 2 feet on the bottom. This is my favorite. So cute. All right. So the next one is the chick. So for this one, it's really 2 dollops. So one big dollop like we just did for the bunny, and then a smaller one, and that's going to bring to a point for like the top of the chick head. We'll take our cupcake, our yellow buttercream, and like we did before, I'm just going to do one big dollop for the first layer of buttercream. So I'm going to squeeze, keep squeezing just until it gets to the outer edge. And that's the base of the chick. And then I'm going to do one more dollop that's not as wide. And then I'm going to lift up so that I get that little peak on the top. And you want it to be big enough dollop so that you have room for the beak and the eyes. So I'm going to start squeezing, start lifting up a little bit. And then it creates that nice little peak at the top. So this is going to be the area for the face, and then this is considered the body, and then the feet will go down here. Okay, so I'll bring these pieces back over. And we can add the eyes. The beak. And then the feet. This is another really, really cute one. I think you can do this with a lot of different animals or characters, the same technique, and you can just do, you can add ears. You could probably do a bunny like this as well. All right, so we have our cupcakes done. Does anyone have any questions?
We have a couple.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. So Lucinda wanted to know how much butter you added for the buttercream frosting.
So it depends on how much you're making. I made 2 pounds of the buttercream icing mix, so I used 8 ounces of butter. If I was using a pound of mix, I would use 4 ounces. You could even use a full 8 ounces if you're making a pound, because you'll get that extra buttery taste and it will be fluffy. So you can actually experiment a little bit. If you want to add more butter, add more. Add cream cheese. It's really all delicious. It's a lot of fun too.
And just to verify, 8 ounces is 1 stick of butter, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. Loretta would like to know what consistency the buttercream should be, and then she was comparing it to toothpaste, if that is comparable.
Okay, so it's a thick consistency, so something that you're going to be able to pipe and it's going to hold its shape. I would say, you know what, I think it might be a little thicker than toothpaste. And also, I meant 8 tablespoons for the butter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is, yes, 1 stick of butter. So I'm going to show you the consistency here. You can tell by, but it's nice and fluffy. It holds its shape. You're able to hold the spatula over the bowl and it's not dropping down or anything. It's nice and sturdy. But again, if you wanted a thinner consistency, you can add water. So a nice way to check the consistency is like what I just did, picking it up with your spatula, tipping it over, and making sure that it's not dolloping down. It's staying put. And you can also see if you move through the buttercream with your spatula, you'll get nice peaks.
Okay, and the last question, do you store the frosting in the fridge?
Yes. So since I used water in this batch of buttercream, you can actually leave it out room temperature for a day or two, just like you could with butter. And then you could probably store it in the fridge for about a week, week and a half, and then you can even freeze it, which is great too. Are there any more questions?
The last one is, what is the recipe for the buttercream?
Okay, so the recipe for the buttercream, there's a few different ones depending on what consistency you want, but the standard one is 1 pound of buttercream, 4 tablespoons of butter, and 1 tablespoon of water. And that can vary depending on the consistency. You can also go on to satinice.com and we have all the different recipes there, including the different flavors. What's the website? You can go to satinice.com. And then you can also go to the Satinice social medias that are on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook as well, and YouTube. Satinice.com, SATINICE.com. Yep, Chanel just put it in the chat. There you go. Are there any more questions that came through?
Do you store the fondant at room temperature?
Yes, you can store the fondant at room temperature. Just make sure that it's in an airtight container and it'll be good.
And then the last question, what is the best way to fill the piping bag?
So my favorite way to fill a piping bag, I wish I had a tall enough cup to show you. I do have a piping bag here, but if you had a tall glass, I wish I had something. You would want to put the piping tip end down into the glass, and then you can fold the edges down. And this way the glass will hold your piping bag there. And this way you can just stuff your piping bag with the buttercream. You could also do it like what I'm doing right now. I'm holding the piping bag and I'm folding the edges down over my hand. So I'm kind of holding it open. And then I would take my spatula and shove it down in the bottom and just keep packing it through. This way there's like little to no air. And then pick it back up. I would push down the buttercream to the tip, and then you're ready to go.
And then we had another question come in. Is it better to do powdered sugar or granulated sugar for buttercream?
If you're making buttercream from scratch, definitely powdered sugar.
All right, it looks like that's it.
That's it. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun today. Be sure to follow Satin Ice on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the social medias. We have tons of inspiration. And feel free to message us whenever you want for any, if you have any questions or anything. But thank you guys again for joining me. Have a great weekend.